Well, let's talk to somebody who's never been accused of being charismatically challenged. It's Anne Widdecombe, who joins us, former Conservative MP and, of course, former Strictly contestant. Anne, very good to have you on the show. What's Christmas like in the Widdecombe household?
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas.
And you.
Thank you.
It's much reduced from last year when I put 12 people around the table. I'm afraid this year it's only going to be 4, but that doesn't stop it being merry.
Exactly. Now, we want to know who your people of 2020 are.
Right. Well, I'm going to start with the Reverend Pat Allerton. Now, he's the chap who, right at the beginning of the big lockdown, when the churches all closed and just rolled over, he's the one who said, right, well, if people can't come to church, I'll take the church to them. And he went out onto the streets on a tricycle with some loudspeakers and a pannier on the front of the tricycle. And he took services out onto the streets and people joined in from their doorways and from their windows. And of course, when he first started, people were just peeping out rather embarrassed, as the British do. But the more that he went on, then with a splendid version of Abide With Me, great rendering of it, people suddenly decided, we'll go and we'll cheer this. And when he left, he got an enormous clap in the excerpt that I saw. He was doing it everywhere. So I think Pat Allerton, because everybody's heard of the Archbishop of Canterbury, probably very few people have heard of Pat Allerton, but I think it's Pat Allerton who ought to be the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
I wish I'd seen that. I can imagine you on your tricycle doing a similar thing, going around your local village, sort of preaching to the parishioners.
Well, having just given up my bicycle, I did wonder if I should regress and go back to childhood and get a tricycle.
Right, your second nomination.
My second nomination is Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall. Now, we've all seen the royals during this COVID crisis. And of course, we've had the Queen doing very dignified broadcasting. And we've had William and Kate touring the country. But Camilla just very quietly, throughout the long lockdown, was ringing up old folk and lonely folk, as she was briefed, and delighting them. And doing it very much behind the scenes. I mean, you don't see much of that, whereas you see a lot of the royals out and about. So I think she's been a great asset this year. And so I say 3 cheers for Camilla, and I want her to be one of my people of 2020.
I love the Christmas card that she and Prince Charles sent out this year. She's wearing jeans, which you wouldn't necessarily think of the Duchess of Cornwall wearing jeans. But she's also...
Actually, I think any 73-year-old wearing jeans is quite something. I bought my first ever pair of blue jeans in my early 60s and my last ever pair in my late 60s. And I don't think I'd risk it now.
Never say never, Anne. Never say never.
Well, Camilla is an avid LBC listener, I'm told. So I totally approve of that nomination. Your third nomination?
Well, my third nomination is a more serious one because I asked myself, well, who has had a massive impact in 2020, and my nomination is going to be Nigel Farage. If you remember the beginning of 2020, that big rally in Parliament Square, this is before COVID had hit, and we had left the EU, literally had just left the EU. And now, of course, we're at the end of 2020, and the transition period is coming to an end, and none of that would have happened but for one man who is completely outside Parliament's never been part of the conventional politics of the country at all, but he's achieved that, and I think that's worth noting.
I'm sure Jacqui agrees.
I mean, I agree that he's been influential. He's outside Parliament, of course, because he's never managed to win an election. But anyway, Anne, you have, of course, and you've had a second act of your political life. Is there going to be a third act? Are you going to be coming back to some sort of elected position at some point or another?
Well, I don't think I'm doing that, Jacqui, and I know that just now you told me never say never again. But I was pretty amazed to come back the second time and to do the European Parliament. I hadn't intended it. Even a month before I actually did it, I would have said to you, I don't be daft if you put that to me as a proposition. But out of sheer frustration at what was going on, I felt duty pointed that way. And as I put it at the time, duty didn't just call, duty howled. I do sincerely hope that sort of duty doesn't howl again, quite honestly.
Now, you both have something in common, of course. You both appeared on Strictly. And, of course, Jacqui had what I called her Widdecombe moment on Strictly when she was winched up into the gods. Now, Anne, I know that you watched her performance. Would you like to give us your rating?
Oh dear. Well, I mean, the first thing to say to Jacqui is no matter how low the judges' rating is, doesn't matter, because we were at the bottom of the judges' ratings for 10 whole weeks. But we were never once in the bottom two because the public just kept us going. So never listen to the judges, Jacqui. So don't listen to me when I say 3. Don't listen.
You did brilliantly, Anne, I have to say. But I didn't get enough public votes. But I think, if I'm right, I got your vote, didn't I, Anne? Or at least Anton and I got your vote.
Yes, I every year, I don't do much. I don't watch Strictly now all the way through or anything like that. But every year I try at least a couple of times during the Strictly session to go in and vote for Anton. And so, yes, I did vote for you, Jacqui.
I think you're both a little in love with Anton. We are. And thank you very much for joining us. Have a brilliant 2021. Thank you very much. That's Anne Widdecombe there.